you're here now.
Yes, I can see you. Hi, guys. How are we?
Hi, we're fine.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for asking. Good stuff.
Thank you for offering.
Well, you haven't seen what we've got to see yet. You might be wishing we hadn't at the end of it.
This is true.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And welcome, Iain. We haven't met before. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good stuff. Good to see you. All I wanted to thank you for being the guinea pig. All I wanted to do was spend about half an hour just talking about good practice and how to make reads come alive. So bear with me if some of what I tell you is stuff you already know instinctively, because obviously there may be people who watch this in the future who don't know everything. So it won't all be directed towards you. It's a kind of general thing. So shall we plunge straight in? Yeah, good stuff.
Go for it, that man.
I'm
going to mute.
Sorry?
I'm going to mute myself, Paul, just in case the dog starts to bark in the background. The postman's due. So I will mute myself at the moment, okay?
Okay, I bet Morag's been waiting months to hear that. I'm going to mute myself. If only life was...
Unfortunately, you cannot hear it demand.
So before we actually go through the reading, I have sent you a couple of scripts in beforehand. I just want to talk about the setup of recording at home. Now, let me share with you, if I may. Can you see, if I select that, can you see this picture here, Iain?
I can, yes.
Yeah.
Actor Tim Bentinck.
This is David Archer here, or the actor who plays David Archer in The Archers, recording during lockdown. Mm-hmm. Now, you'll see that he's got all sorts of things, from a flipping heater here to pop guards to stop any explosives coming and being recorded. This is a microphone with a foam box that you can buy online. I'm not advocating you do this because this is for professional recordings for drama. And then he has here going round it, all this, which is again, sound baffling, if you like. And then all around him, he's put a duvet and the back of a sofa, anything that will absorb any sound reflections. And here you can see there's another microphone as well as this one. This one might be in its own box. This, on the other hand, has a big foam rubber ellipse and a kind of elliptical dish, excuse me, behind it. So these are the lengths that people go to. Now, I'm not advocating for a second that you do that, but what I am advocating is that we should think a bit more about how we record these things. So let me show you here what I have. If I take this down, you can see here, this is my microphone that I record on. Okay, now you can, this goes straight into the computer. You can, if you wish, use your iPhone and use one of these. Now, these are quite cheap to buy online. I'll show you more about them in a second. That plugs into your iPhone. Or there are other things that you can do. And incidentally, if you are just using your iPhone and you're not going to use an external microphone plugged into your iPhone, if you're just using the bit down here and you're recording it straight as if you're making a phone call, but onto the audio recording software, then do place it on top of a pile of books like that, because it brings it more in line with your mouth. Otherwise, your chin is going to double over and all the sounds are going to be kept within. You need to be projecting. And the one way to project is to sit up and do it at a proper level. Now, in terms of the sound baffling, the sound acoustic paneling, I have loads of these that I put around me when I'm doing a professional recording. These are cheap as chips and you can buy them online as well. Again, while I'm sharing the screen with you, let me show you. Can you see this? This is this little microphone that I showed you. Can you see on the screen? It's called an iRig Cast. Now, this is £27.11, as you can see, which is a lot of money. And again, I'm not advocating that you spend that, but you can go for cheaper. There's £2.18 here for a clip-on lapel mic. You know, we're not talking about spending fortune. So it's finding what works for you. And that's going to take time, but it doesn't have to take a lot of money. So don't feel you have to spend a lot of money on it. But what you do have to do is you do have to use it wisely, and you do have to project. And if you are going to use the iPhone, then what I suggest is putting it on top of a pile of books. Let me put my camera back up the top, having dealt with that. Whoops. There we go. Okay. Right. So if I come off that for a second, I did send you some reads to do, Iain. So
Yes.
Could you do a read for me now? And for those who don't know, I've given you a couple of stories from The National, which is the SNP supporting paper in Scotland. The only reason I did that was because that's what I read for Q and Review on a daily basis. And it was just 2 scripts at random from a couple of days ago. I haven't selected them for any other reason other than that they are random. So could you read the first one for us, please?
Certainly.
Thanks.
Sorry, I'll be with you in just a minute. I had them up. Yeah, I've got it. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Unionist sources claim Tories could agree to Indy-Ref 2 in November 2021. By Andrew Learmonth. The Tories could be set to call the SNP's bluff and agree to a surprise second independence referendum in the winter of next year, Unionist sources have told the BBC. According to a report this morning, there is a high-risk temptation for some in Whitehall to try to force a vote in the SNP before they actually want to move, to use the power of surprise. Speaking on the Today programme, the BBC's political editor Laura Kuenssberg said that private polling carried out by the Unionist side was pretty dreadful.
Okay, Iain, thank you very much indeed. That's great. And again, thanks for being the scapegoat and allowing us to analyse. It's not easy. I hate it. When I'm working for radio stations, once a month I have to go in with my programme director, and he takes an hour from a programme, as he does with everyone else, and he analyses it and he'll say, why did you say that? What were you thinking of when you did this? Wasn't that a bit silly to do that? It's horrible, but the only way to think of it is that, you know, I totally get it. He's trying to help me. He's trying to help me get better. So that's all this is. So it's not in any way a criticism as we go forward. Right. Immediately, a few things strike me. The first is that you are leaning right into the microphone, okay? And if you do that, naturally, it makes it a bit more introspective, and it's a bit more back in the throat and down in the chest and all that, which is great if you want to be intimate. But there's no need to be intimate reading a story about what the SNP thinks. And in fact, in being so intimate, what is happening is you're not actually opening your mouth very much. Whereas if you sit back, you have to project that microphone. So could you read it again for me? Forget being intimate. Just sit back a little bit. Don't lean into the microphone, okay? And I want you to talk as if the microphone is maybe 6 inches behind where it is. So you're trying to hit a spot 6 inches behind where that microphone is, and you're already sitting back a bit. So I'm asking you to do quite a lot compared to the intimate slow thing, okay? So let's try that for a sec. Projecting to just beyond the microphone. Off you go. Start from the beginning, please.
Unionist sources claim Tories could agree to Indy-Ref 2 in November 2021. By Andrew Learmonth. The Tories could be set to call the SNP's bluff and agree to a surprise second referendum in the winter of next year, Unionist sources have told the BBC.
Okay, Iain, thank you very much. Thank you. Now, what kind of person are you when things don't go right for you, when things go slightly wrong, people annoy you? Do you just kind of go, fair enough? Do you get angry? Have you ever been angry? Do you raise your voice?
Not often, no. Actually.
Okay, it's going to change now. Okay, right. I want you to go back to the position that you were in before, and I want you to read it to me as if you're angry. Okay?
Okay.
Right, so go back to the position you were in, back from the microphone. You're trying to hit 6 inches past the microphone, And I want you to do it in a way that you really hacked off with me and you really want me to understand what you're saying. Okay?
Okay. Unionist sources claim Tories could agree to IndyRef 2 in November 2021 by Andrew Learmonth.
Oh, whoa, Iain, already I can understand so much more of what you're saying, right? You've taken it away from being this introspective thing and you're making it out there. You're broadcasting, which is what we're supposed to be doing. You were narrowcasting to yourself. You were narrowcasting to the back of your throat. You were doing it very much like this because it was very intimate and all that. But now, whoa, we're broadcasters. How long has that taken? Minutes. Great, well done, Iain. Oh, you're even getting a round of applause from Alistair. Great. So that's how we're going to go on, okay? Now, projection is not shouting, okay? Projection is getting your voice into your mouth, not way back here where everything's swallowed because you're just keeping it to yourself. You want to share the words. And so it comes into your mouth. And basically, the voice works in two ways. One, it's the vocal cords, obviously, and the breath going over the vocal cords. The second is this bit here, which is the resonance chamber, the sound box, if you like. This is where the waveforms come and are expanded and are thrown out. Now, you have to bring it to the front of your mouth, okay? Almost as if you are getting sibilant. But you're not going to get sibilant. You're just going to bring it to the front of your mouth and get it out there. So let's go back and do it again, exactly as you were doing. You slightly hacked off with me, okay? So your voice is louder. You're sitting back a bit, projecting to 6 inches behind the microphone, and you're concentrating and getting the words, what you're saying in here. Yeah?
Okay.
Thank you.
Unionist sources claim Tories could agree to IndyRef 2 in November 2021 by Andrew Learmonth. The Tories could be set to call the SNP's bluff and agree to a surprise second independence referendum in the winter of next year.
Let's stop, Iain. Okay, the Tories could be set to. You ran all the words together, so you've got to give them all the respect they deserve, these words. So don't run your words together. The Tories are set to, you're not in a race, you've got as long as you want. You have to remember that they don't have a script. They don't know what the hell the story is. They're not following it word by word. You are their script as well as their script reader. And if any of the words slide into each other, then they're going to lose the sense of the plot of what you're talking about. So give each word the respect it deserves. Tell yourself you're not in a race. Tell yourself that I think you are the most wonderful reader in the world, and I will hang on every word that you say. So project and project slower. Yeah? So take it on to a couple of paragraphs after that, rather than do the same thing over and over again, Iain.
Speaking on the Today programme, the BBC's political editor Laura Kuenssberg said that private polling carried out by the Unionist side was pretty dreadful. She said there was a wide spectrum of debates about what to do about rising support for independence. Our Survation poll last week became the 12th in a row to show a majority of Scots support independence. It also suggested the SNP will have to win a majority at next May's Holyrood election. Last night, John Major warned Boris Johnson about the risk of standing in the way of IndyRef 2.
Okay, you're doing brilliantly. And last night, John Major warned Boris Johnson. Okay, make it stand out, because a former Tory Prime Minister warning a current Prime Minister, it's an unusual thing. It's not like he went to a sweetie shop and he bought a toffee bar, right? So it's John Major warned Boris Johnson, not John Major warned Boris Johnson. Yeah? Okay, so just take it from the beginning of that sentence. Thank you.
Last night, John Major warned Boris Johnson about the risk of standing in the way of IndyRef 2. He suggested his successor allow a second independence referendum, but only on the condition of holding a third, confirmatory vote after negotiations. Tory reaction to the speech has suggested that Number 10 are unconvinced by the former Tory Prime Minister's suggestion. However, according to the BBC sources, there has been some whispering around the place in Westminster about the possibility of essentially trying to call the SNP's bluff to grant them another referendum if they get a majority in May, perhaps maybe this time next year. Kuenssberg added, and that's not because anyone in government actually wants to have another referendum or split the UK apart, but this is what one source described to me as a very high-risk temptation to force a move on the SNP before they actually want to move, to use the power of surprise.
Iain, you're doing brilliantly. Thank you. Take a break for a wee second. That's brilliant. How does it sound in your head?
Loud.
Okay. And how does it sound in your head in terms of pace?
It's a little slower than I would normally read, I must admit.
Great. Okay. So let me share with you a tip that I give when I'm dealing with bosses at companies and I'm teaching them how to speak on stage for a conference. And I say to them, how does it sound in your head? And they'll say, like you said, loud. And I'll say to them, and how does it sound in terms of pace? And they'll go, oh, it's like a funeral. I'll go, great. Suck it up. So what? It doesn't matter what it sounds like to us. It matters what it sounds like to the audience. Okay. So what you have to do when you do your readings from now on, and everyone's different, but for you, you have to think in your head, it's loud and it's slow. And you have to embrace that. Don't fight it. Be the person who is loud and slow because that works for you. Now, it won't work for everyone. Some people will be shouting and would have to bring them back. Some people will be going too slow and we have to pick up the pace. But in terms of how you feel, just adapt. Okay? And you will find actually, if you do this enough, it will change the way that you talk in normal conversation with people. If you went on the radio, forget reading a script. If you were on the radio and you were saying, I don't know, the time is 12 o'clock, midday, it's Thursday, here's the news with Iain McKenna, right? If you went on the radio and you went, it's 12 o'clock midday and it's time for the news with Iain McKenna, well, I'm going to go, I'm going to turn off. If you go on and you say, it's 12 o'clock, it's midday, it's time for the news with Iain McKenna, right? I'll go, right, this guy's in command. This guy is steering a ship and he knows where it's going. I'm happy to be a passenger on it. It gives you authority, okay? So for you, it's slow and it's loud. Now, I want to give you a break. We'll come back to doing it in a moment. I want to share the screen again. This is where it all goes wrong, of course, to show you something that I gave you, which was your scripts. Okay, here we go. These are the scripts I sent to you, taken from the National, as I mentioned. Now, what we have to remember in 2020, 2021, and for years to come, is that there are fewer and fewer and fewer people who actually work in newspapers. And what you and I are being asked to do, Iain, is to turn something which is a bit of a mess into something that is understandable. Here's why it's a mess. Look at this. The Tories could be set to call the SNP's bluff and agree to a surprise. They missed out a letter there. Surprise, of course. It also suggested the SNP will have win. It should have been will have won. And so you can start to see why you need to read these things beforehand and make your changes. Now, this one is, again, I've highlighted it because it's impossible to read properly. Kuenssberg added, and that's not because anyone in government actually wants to have another referendum or split the UK apart, but there is what one source described to me as a very high-risk temptation to force a vote on the SNP before they actually want to move. And only then does a comma come to give us a breath to use the power of surprise. These people, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, actually write it well and put in all the punctuation, but there are no sub-editors anymore. So on its way to the website, all sorts of things can fall off. So if I were reading that, I'd go, Kuenssberg added, and that's not because anyone in government actually wants to have another referendum, comma, or split the UK apart, comma. But there is what one source described to me as a very high-risk temptation to force a vote on the SNP. I'd underline that before they actually want to move, to use the power of surprise. So you've got to put in your own punctuation now. And if we come further on to another script that you and I are going to do together in a minute, look at this. The First Minister's meeting this morning with the Cabinet will announce the decision to Holyrood this afternoon. The decisions, so suddenly we've gone from singular to plural. Now, if you just read that as it is, the listener goes, what? You've just said a decision? How come it's decisions? And then we go into nonsense. Here are the key restrictions which apply in level 4, the highest tier of curbs under the Scottish Government's 5 level, 0 to 4 framework to contain the virus. Without punctuation, it doesn't work. So you've got to put it in. Here, end of a sentence, which have to close out. These are services that have to close. Dress fitting and tailoring, massage therapies and spas, indoor portrait photography. Well, it should be massage therapies, comma, spas, comma, and indoor portrait photography. We have to do their work for them, Iain. It's not right, but it's the way it is just now. The National has a circulation of next to nothing, comparatively speaking, doesn't have the resources to put a lot of money into checking these things first. Look, tattoo artists and piercing services. What? Okay, so that's the importance of actually attacking it beforehand. Let's go to Scotland level lockdown. I'd like you to think about how you are going to make this make sense. Talk to me just now, Iain. How would you read this loudly and slowly? How would you read this bit, this sentence?
Sorry, from here are the key restrictions?
Yeah. Sorry, I was hoping you could see the cursor there. Maybe you can't. Yeah, here are the key restrictions. Yeah.
Here are the key restrictions which apply in level 4, the highest tier of curbs under the Scottish Government's 5 level, 0 to 4 framework to contain the virus.
Okay. Now, what you've done is quite rightly and understandably, you've read it as they have put it. I would suggest here are the key restrictions which apply in level 4. Pause, as you did correctly, yes. I would put in, I wouldn't worry about putting in which is the highest tier of curbs under the Scottish Government's 5 level 0 to 4 framework. But if you don't want to do that, pause as you did. Here are the key restrictions which apply in level 4. The highest tier of curbs under the Scottish Government's 5 level 0 to 4 framework, comma, to contain the virus. Okay? Try that. Here are the key restrictions. Take a pause after framework.
Here are the key restrictions which apply in level 4, the highest tier of curbs under the Scottish Government's 5 level, 0 to 4 framework to contain the virus.
To contain the virus. Bring your voice down at the end of the sentence. To contain the virus is a bit Australian. They love going up at the end of sentences. And even though they're not asking a question, they tend to do that. But no, most other countries apart from Australia, bring it down. But other than that, brilliant, well done. So if you bring up your script, and we'll move to this story now. Scotland lockdown, what are the restrictions in level 4? Okay, and I will somehow work out. Here we go. Oh, come on. I'm trying to get rid of the sharing screen. Sorry about this. No. Well, anyway, you carry on, Iain, and I'll try and work out how to get rid of this. For some reason, the normal control seems to have disappeared.
I can't seem to get into my...
All right. Do you want to just read it off then? I apologize.
I've got it. It's okay. Thanks.
Okay.
So this is the Scotland lockdown. What are the restrictions?
You've gone back to your old ways. Okay.
I was just thinking, is that the one that you want me to read? Sorry, I wasn't actually.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Scotland lockdown. What are the restrictions in level 4 by Kathleen Nutt? Yep. Thank you.
Scotland lockdown. What are the restrictions in level 4 by Kathleen Nutt? Nicola Sturgeon has warned parts of Scotland, including Glasgow and Lanarkshire, may be moved into level 4 after existing assessments are reviewed. The First Minister is meeting this morning with her Cabinet and will announce the decision to Holyrood this afternoon. The decisions will apply from this Friday. Here are the key restrictions which apply in level 4. The highest tier of curbs under the Scottish Government's 5 level, 0 to 4 framework to contain the virus.
Good for you. Now, does that sound painfully slow in your head?
No, actually it sounds okay.
Good, you're getting used to it. That's brilliant. Now, let me turn to something else which these websites that we read from are doing more and more, and they're doing it to save money. More and more stories are coming from elsewhere. They don't have reporters that go out like they did in the old days with a hat on and a fag in the mouth and a pad of paper and a pencil taking quotes. They just go to websites and get quotes, or they go to Twitter feeds and get quotes, which means for us, the problem is, as you will see, Iain, quotation marks. You have to read different people's voices. Now, how do you normally do that, Iain? Do you just carry on as if the quotation marks don't count, or what do you do when you're reading somebody else's words?
It's kind of hard to explain, but I kind of learned in school how that you should obviously change your tone when you're reading quotes, something quotation marks. It's hard to describe exactly how. Do you want me to demonstrate?
Yes, please. Yes, please. So let me come out of this. Have you got your script there?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll take that out. Right. Okay, off you go. Show me how you would do it.
Okay, where do you want me to read from?
Anywhere that precedes
Quotation
some
mark.
quotation marks.
However, she added that this proposal had been rejected in very strong terms by figures who would be involved in actually making such high-stake decisions. I was told it's insane by one source. Someone said no one credible is making an argument for such a vote. But some involved in those conversations are really worried about the lack of a coherent, strong, forceful argument to put forward. There is a sense that number 10 would rather it all went away. They've had so much on their plate.
Good. Okay. Now, there are several ways we can do other people's words. So you have your narrator's voice reading the story, which you're doing, which is great. Then we move into somewhat. Now, if it were, we'll stick with the National being the SNP supporting paper. If it were Nicola Sturgeon, right? You've got a bloke's voice. I've got a bloke's voice. Great. That's what we're born with. She has a woman's voice. Now, subtle changes can include just making your voice a wee bit higher, not going into caricature, that would be silly, but just taking it a wee bit lighter, a wee bit sort of no bass in it, but just a wee bit lighter. The other thing that people have that are different from person to person is a pace and is a rhythm and is a tune. Everybody has a tune to the voice. So you can change the tune. So if I go back to the script here, okay. Now, if we go here, if we come back here, this is John Major talking. Okay, now, if you were doing your narrator's voice in a speech to Middle Temple in London on Monday night, Major said the combination of Brexit and the unpopularity of our present Westminster government in Scotland had increased the likelihood of independence. He wrongly added, now we've got to go into somebody's voice. Let's just change the tune a wee bit, the cadences. So you move from your he wrongly added. In law, the Scots require the approval of the Westminster government before they can legally hold a new independence referendum. Suddenly you're in a new tune. You're accentuating words more than you were doing as the kind of more level narrator. So play with that when you go into it. So Iain, one trick that I use with the chief execs that I coach, and it makes a huge difference. And I've even done this with one of the Lords in the House of Lords for his maiden speech to make his voice more varied and to understand different voices. Is I said, go home and read stories to your kids or your nephews and nieces or your grandkids and do the voices, because they are the most understanding, welcoming audience. They just love the fact you've made a difference. And I used to read Noddy stories, Harry Potter stories, and I used to get pelters from my kids. Oh, Daddy, you've used Harry's voice, but actually it should be so-and-so's voice and whatever. And it really keeps you on form. Kids are a great audience. So here you've got a narrator's voice starting here. So Dorothy said with hesitation, and then you go into Dorothy's voice, and then you go into the Wicked Witch of the West. But you have to come back into your narrator's voice here, replied the old woman with a laugh. Then back into her voice, okay? And then she continued. So you're using a narrator's voice, Dorothy's voice as a little girl, and a cackling Wicked Witch of the West. It's just to hear in your head that you have different notes you can use. We were talking about everyone's voice uses a different tune. We start off as kids where our voices go, probably using about a couple of octaves notes. And it goes from, Mom, I've hurt my knee, which is way down there, to, oh, what? Santa's been, right? Which is way up there. Now, when we get to teenage years, we become too cool for school and we think, no, I'm going to keep it down. I'm going to keep in control. And we lose our knowledge of those other notes. So I want you to rediscover them here. Read from, so Dorothy said as the narrator's voice, and then go into Dorothy and the Wicked Witch. Off you go, Iain.
So Dorothy said, with hesitation, "You are very kind, but there must be some mistake. I have not killed anything." "Your house did anyway," replied the little old woman with a laugh.
All right, no, but you're doing brilliantly. Make that even more your house did anyway. That's sounding a wee bit like your narrator's voice. Really make it cackle and be evil. Try it again. Go back to the top. So Dorothy said.
Okay. So Dorothy said, with hesitation, "You are very kind, but there must be some mistake. I have not killed anything." "Your house did anyway," replied the little old woman with a laugh. "And that is the same thing. See," she continued, pointing to the corner of the house. "There are 2 toes still sticking out from under a block of wood."
Brilliant. Well done. That was just fantastic. Right, I'm going to stop the sharing of the page now. That was brilliant. I narrate audiobooks and you get different voices in that. And it's a killer. It really is horrible. You've got to remember whose voice you're using. But for something like this, it should be quite simple. Just to experiment and move, no matter who it is. You can either make it a deeper voice, a lighter voice, you can change the rhythm, you can change the tune. You've done it. You've shown yourself that you can do it. That was brilliant. So having done that, let's go back to the script. Do you need me to bring that up on screen?
No, I've got it.
You've got it. Let's go back to the script, story number 2, and read it. And when we come, I won't interrupt you. When you come to anything in exclamation marks, somebody speaking, try and experiment with the voice a wee bit. Okay?
So from the headline, Scotland lockdown?
Take it from wherever you like. Remember that distance to the microphone. Remember you're projecting to 6 inches past. And remember, slow.
Nicola Sturgeon has warned parts of Scotland, including Glasgow and Lanarkshire, may be moved into level 4 after existing assessments are reviewed. The First Minister is meeting this morning with her cabinet and will announce the decision to Holyrood this afternoon. The decisions will apply from this Friday. I've just realised, sorry, I've started a bit that's not getting any quotation marks in it for quite a while, sorry.
All right, jump to where there's some quotation marks.
Sure.
Sounding great.
I'm not sure I can find any.
Well, there are certainly some in the previous story if you want to go to that.
Right, okay, I will do, yeah.
In fact, page 2 of the previous one, there's loads of quotation marks. You could take it from however she added that this proposal had been rejected from the top of page 2 of the first script.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
However, she added that this proposal had been rejected in very strong terms by figures who would be involved in actually making such high-stake decisions. I was told it's insane by one source. Someone said no one credible is making an argument for such a vote. But some involved in these conversations are really worried about a lack of a coherent, strong, forceful argument to put forward. There is a sense that number 10 would rather it all went away. They've had so much on their plate. It's very clear, though, that the Prime Minister does not want this to happen. I'm going to say,
You're doing really well. Keep it up.
he does not want to allow another agonising constitutional question to dominate the early years of his term in charge, far less to allow the possibility that having taken the UK out of the EU, which he wanted to do, Boris Johnson then opens the doors to the end of the Union, which he does not want to do.
Great. Now that's your Laura Kuenssberg. You go back to your narrator's voice and you're going to go into a John Major voice. Okay, so carry on.
In a speech to Middle Temple in London on Monday night, Major said, "The combination of Brexit and the unpopularity of our present Westminster government in Scotland had increased the likelihood of independence."
Good for you. Well done. Good stuff. Some other ways you can vary the voice is if you don't want to try any of those things, like trying a different tune or trying a different pace or whatever, even just looking slightly off mic can, in the listener's head, say, oh, that's somebody else speaking. And then you come back directly into the mic for your narrator's voice. Little things like that work. What I sometimes do when I'm reading the National is I'll do my narrator's voice, which is my speaking voice. But then if I'm going into, say, oh, I don't know, supposing instead of this being John Major, it had been somebody from the Scottish government, then what I might do is say, in a speech to Middle Temple in London on Monday night, Major said, "The combination of Brexit and the unpopularity of our present Westminster government in Scotland had increased the likelihood of independence." Now, what I've done is gone from my natural speaking voice to accentuating the Scottish bit a wee bit. It's enough to make you think that it's a different voice. So that when I go a wee bit from using those kind of words pronounced in that kind of way, when I come back to my normal speaking voice, you know that you're back with a narrator because I'm not speaking in that kind of thing. So there's different ways you can try it. You've just got to play with it. You've just got to experiment with it. So just in conclusion, practice as much as you can. Do read kids' books and try out different voices and feel comfortable with it. Project beyond the microphone. Use whatever you can for, whether it be these things or like we had with the Archers, the duvet rounders, whatever, to try and stop any outside noises coming in and excuse me, and too much echo. If you are going to use the iPhone, then remember, balance it on the pile of books so that it lifts your head so as you're not swallowing it all, and enjoy it. But please remember, we are the script. We might not like the script. We haven't written the script. It doesn't have the punctuation that it should have, and it certainly doesn't have the punctuation for it to be read. It's written for it to be read with eyes rather than to be read out loud with your voice. So do have a look at it before you say it. Don't just bluster into it. Put your own punctuation in. And thank you once again, Iain. Not easy to be the scapegoat and have to stand up there and be criticised, but you're sounding a lot better. Very well done. Really pleased.
Well done, Iain.
Thank you.
Well done, Iain.
Absolutely smashing, Iain. Thanks. That was exactly what I'd hoped we'd get out of this.
That was excellent. And
Oh,
Paul,
good.
thank you so much for your time for doing that.